Okay, so what we're talking about today, this is the topic we introed on Friday. It was called section 1.5. It was commission and tips. Commission and tips. Now, what I talked about Friday was, I think it was Gull. I think you were kind of doing the homework the other day, the page 6 and 7 stuff, and you looked at the wrong page and you were trying to tip stuff. It gets tricky because what they tell you and what they're asking for. That's the goal today, is to talk about what commission is, do a couple extreme examples of it, and I'm going to do the extreme examples of commission. And then we're going to do a couple problems with tips. And the last one we have to do is piecework functions, or piecework type of pay rates. So tips and piecework, because these are kind of all the things, they're all kind of basically the same. So this is piecework wages. But again, all these things, commission, tips, piecework, they're all based on what you're getting paid, right? So the goal is to kind of go through some different examples. So here's an extreme case. So I'm looking at a car right now, right? So I'm just going to make it up because I just saw it the other day. There's a Mini Cooper uptown. It's on Pritchard's lot. Okay, so there's a Mini Cooper uptown. It's 2005 Mini Cooper. Okay. Now the thing that the salesman wants, they want $6,400 for it. So the first thing you should always do, go on NADA. That's a price checker online. Kelley Blue Book. Then you also go to like the classifieds like Auto Trader, and you look at what similar cars are going for at that market price. Never just go and go, okay, that seems good, you know, I can afford that. You gotta do research. Okay, so here's the websites again. NADA, that's one most car companies always use. Kelley Blue Book, KBB, and I would check like Auto Trader, and other websites of that type, that caliber, that trade or sell cars. Not auction sites are different. But I'm saying like just people that are putting their cars on the market, Craigslist, that type of thing, right? So you check these websites, you type in the details, you gotta know what you're looking at, so you gotta know the year, you gotta know mileage, you gotta know the options that are on the car, the place you're gonna look at your vehicle should have a printout for you. Check the accident history report of it, the Carfax, to make sure there's no major damages to it, water damage, flood damage. Check if it's been repaired a lot, if there's consistent oil changes, that's always kind of a nice thing. Checking if they've had new fresh tires, because that's something you don't want to worry about. Or brakes is another big one. If the brakes are really lax, you might need new brakes on it. But little things that you're checking for. But they have it for $6,400. I guarantee, if that's what the price is on the lot, that's not what they paid for. Okay, if you check KBB or NADA, the price of the car is $5,100. It's $5,100. Okay, and you know for a fact if it's $5,100 on the NADA, the car place did not even pay $5,100 for that car. You know they didn't, because that's the manufacturer's number. They didn't pay full price. It's almost guaranteed. They probably paid $47 if you could get lucky at it. So the idea here is there is wiggle room. What the wiggle room is, that's basically the commission. It's almost guaranteed that the commission is all that difference. Okay, between 51 with the NADA and what the price that they're asking for. That's the hardest part about negotiating, is that if you're going to try to come and go, hey, NADA say it's only worth 51, and they just go, I'm not going to sell it to you for 51. Yeah, because it's probably the salesman, that's the price he's getting paid for that car. They probably already have a set agreement with the manager that if it's somewhere, you know, probably above the $6,000 mark, he'll probably sell it to you, or she. But the commission there, that's involved. What commission is, it's a percent of sale. That's what you're making. Car salesmen don't make a very big percent. They don't. If you sell a lot of cars, yeah. It depends on the market, right? It depends on if the car market is selling a lot. How you can check that, if you just check car lots a lot and see if the inventory is moving around a lot, that's a good year. They're selling lots of cars. There's some months there that you won't sell a car on a lot. You'll see the same cars there all the time. Smart dealers, they'll rotate cars a lot. They'll get cars from other districts like Pritchard's has them in Britt, Forest City, Garner, Mason City. They have a lot of cars, they move them around quite a bit. But you gotta check, you gotta see if they're moving. Because if they're not moving cars, that's another negotiation for you. He wants to make a sale if they're not making a lot. They get kind of desperate, they get a little rabid. They're, the minute you pull them a lot, they're running out to see you. It's a little desperate. They want a sale, they haven't seen one for a while. Okay? So that can help you in negotiation. If you have to go inside, they're doing fine. They didn't need to come talk to you. So just kind of be aware of that. But let's talk about the actual commission involved. Let's say that 6,400 was a good deal. Okay, it's not, but let's say it is. Okay. So the commission is a percent of sale. It just depends on the dealership. Depends on the price of the item. Maybe the salesman's getting a 10% commission. I have no idea what the dealership's getting, where I only know certain ones where I had people work there. But let's say he gets 10% commission. Fine. 10% commission. What you do to figure out what the salesman's making is you take your price times that commission. So 10% is 0.10. That's 10% written as a decimal. You always move the decimal over 2 spots, whatever it is. So you multiply it, it's going to tell you 640 bucks. 640 bucks. That's what it's going to tell you on your calculator. That's the price that the salesman's going to get. That's the cash in his pocket for the sale. Now they'll take taxes out and stuff. But car dealers are tough. It's a tough business to work in because you don't get paid a lot per hour, bare minimum, like minimum wage per hour, and you make commission on top. That's how you make your sales. So if you're a really good salesman, yeah, you'll make a lot of cash because you're moving cars, you're making those deals. The problem is this number. This is why it's nice to know what those commission rates are if you have people on the inside of the business, because that number right there is probably the max that person will fluctuate on. Because maybe all the price when you negotiate is coming off of his commission. That could be, that type of business happens. That sale won't go, he won't give you $600 off that car because whatever he takes off is out of his pocket. So he might only make, if you want to take $400 off of that price for that car, you want to negotiate down 200 bucks, so you want to get to 6,200, that $200 might come out of his pocket. So he's only going to make 240, or 440 I should say, 440. Maybe that's the price he's going to make for that sale. So that's where the wiggle room comes in. That's when they just go, no, we're not going to sell it to you for that. Because he probably knows that number in his head, what he wants to make from that sale. There's a magic number per car. But you also have to check online. What are the cars selling for? Maybe that car is selling for $5,100 online. That's not a good sale. Leave it be. Go online and go buy somewhere else. I know it's convenient to have it here in town, but you don't have to. I mean, if you just think about it, there's another car down the street, there's a car at Olenberg's, same exact model, just different color. Okay? That's something you need to think about. But commission, it's the number on the top. Usually, places of work, you make a certain wage per hour, super small if you're in commission work, and then the commission stuff's on top. That's tough, that's a tough business to be in. So you have to calculate your hourly wages and then add in any of these extra stuff. Let's talk about tips. Okay, so, sorry. If you're gonna go for tips, you're a waitress, waiter, wherever you're at. Tips are the money that you're making on top of whatever that bill of sale was for the restaurant. Another word for tips, gratuity. That's something that we talked about on Friday. You need to be careful. Some businesses already added gratuity in, and they tell you that. It's a very subtle line on your receipt. It says gratuity was 10%. Okay, your gratuity was 10%. They already added the tip in. You don't probably need to leave more if you don't want to leave more than 10%. My default is always 20. Just depends on how they did. They were civil. They're getting stuff to you. They're fine. Because sometimes it's not their fault. It could be the cook. It could be the how many people are in the restaurant. So just keep an eye on that. But gratuity, it's the price that they're getting paid. Okay. So if let's say a waiter or waitress is making so many dollars per hour, and waiters and waitresses, there's a bare minimum wage. Does anyone happen to know what minimum wage is for a waiter or waitress in Ireland? $4. Yeah, it's super small. I think it's like $4.15. This is what they get paid per hour. Now, it used to be when I was in school, it was $2.30 an hour for a waitress. And everyone's like, why would you ever waitress? Because you're getting paid $2.30 per hour, $4.15 per hour. But all the tips are your cash in hand with no taxes. It's cash. No tips no taxes needed. Now on your tax forms, there is a spot where you can put, if you're a waitress, you can fill in what you make for tips. There's a certain number you probably should enter. But the idea is that you're going to make so many tips per hour. So let's say you're working an 8-hour day. So you got to calculate what your price per hour is, like what you're making for wages, but then you got to add your tips in. So maybe in an 8-hour period, 8 hours, maybe you made $150 worth of tips. In a restaurant, that could be normal. Depends. Like if you're working at, like, let's say a PM Park or Clear Lake, those waitresses and waiters can make way more than that. Easy. It depends on the night. If it's around the 4th of July, they can make $300 or $400 in cash in a night, and that'd be nothing. OP, same thing. It just depends on the night. I know it can be it could drag out. Talking to the Viking, kids that work at the Viking all the time, they make pretty good tips, but then they share it. That's something that you need to also think about. Yeah, you might make $150 in tips, but if you want to be that person where that cook treats you well and gets you your food quick, you should share some of that with the cook. Because the cook is the one getting you those tips. They're getting the food out quickly for you. They're treating you right. That's something you should think about. You should share it. At the Viking, they just have a tip jar. They split up at the end of the night. They only might make $10, $15 in tips because they're sharing all that cash that's in front of the table with all workers. But it's important. That's kind of a community aspect to it. But this is the price. This money is something you got to think about. Maybe that's the price that's being added to your total for the $4.15 in 8 hours. You got to add in the $150 later. If you're working more than that, I think one of the questions Gala, you asked me on, I think it was like Wednesday or something last week when you were working on that homework. It was like it's saying like you're working 50-hour week and you're making $150 in tips every 8 hours. So you got to calculate if you're working 50 hours a week at your job, for a waitress. You got to calculate what your wages are, what your overtime is. Maybe they're getting time and a half for overtime. But then you got to figure out how many 8-hour periods are in that. How many 8-hour periods are in 50? Because every 8 hours you're making another $150 in tips. So you might have 3 or 4 different 8-hour periods in there. So you got to add $150 a bunch of times. Yeah, you can make some serious cash waitressing or being a waiter or being a busboy or something. You can make some serious money. Depends on the job you're at, the location you're at, what you're serving. But you're putting hours, 50 hours a week. That's tough. That's a lot of time, and especially with a waitress and waiter. You may not get health benefits. You may not get insurance. You may not get all that other stuff. Depends on the work that you're doing. So that can be tough too. So those are like little things you've got to think about. Now, what gratuity is let's say you're going in. So let's talk about other than just making so much dollars per tips. Let's say you're walking in that restaurant and your bill, so you bought a meal, you got another meal. Maybe your bill for that sale was $26.70. Let's say that's what the bill was for your restaurant. You went to the OP and that was your bill. Okay, and they didn't have gratuity on. They had a little line for a tip. There was no gratuity added to your bill. So the trick is, depends on what you would like to donate to the waiter or waitress. Normal is about 10 to 20%. That's kind of normal. You can go more, you can go less. Okay. My default is always 20. It's always 20. That's just the default. It seems silly, but it's just my go-to. Unless it's just silly and it's just easier just to throw a random dollar on the table over $5. Okay? But what you do is, let's say I'm going to go with my default 20% for this waiter or waitress. So you're going to take your $26.70, you're going to take it times 0.2, and that's the 20% tip I'm going to give them on top of the bill. So this will be extra on top of the 26, because I know that's what they make their money on. Okay? Same thing, haircut, right? If you go to Great Clips, you go to some place, you get a haircut. They're asking for a tip line. Maybe that's all they make is the tip. So you got to think about that. I don't know anything about that business. Maybe they're actually making a little bit on each haircut, but kind of nice to tip them, they do a nice job, that type of thing. So, but paying them extra cash,
Oh my God.
that's unnecessary. All right, but you take 2670, take it times 0.2. Can somebody do that math for me? What's 2670 times 0.2? Can I do that number?
5.34.
5.34?
Yeah.
Okay, so this might be the extra money I add on the bill. Maybe I won't go $5.34, maybe I'll just add 5. So I'll just add 5 to the 26. You know, I'll just kind of round off. But if you want to be strict like 20%, yeah, take $26.70 and add in the 534. Kind of nice to know what your tip is. Now, if you want it to automatically do it, 20%, all you have to do in front of this is just put a 1. If you put a 1 in front, it'll automatically add the tip into your bill, and it will give you what your total bill is, which would be this. Which would be, if you added these together, it'll tell me 3204. If I put a 1 in front of that when I multiply. It won't just tell me 534, it'll tell me what my total bill is going to be. So you can kind of check, like, do I want to give that much? Yeah, that's fine, 35. Some people are really strict, they want to make it even number, I want to make it up to 30 even, they'll figure out by subtracting how much money they can give. Some people, there's little things people do, but gratuity tips are on top. Okay, what we'll probably do tomorrow on the homework is that I'll give you a certain price you're getting paid, you know, per hour. You work so many hours and you get so many tips in those hours and figure out what your total is. We'll do some more samples of that tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow for sure bring your calculator. Now let's do our last problem of the day. Piecework functions. This is our piecework type of wages. I think, what do you say, 3M or is it Winnebago or something?
3M.
3M. So you get paid per item you produce, or check if you're in quality control. When during the summers when I was in high school, or not high school, but when I was in college, I worked at Larson Manufacturing over in Clear Lake. During the summers, I always came back and made storm doors and windows and stuff. Pretty easy job, but we didn't get paid per item. You just worked so many hours and that's what you got paid for. It didn't matter the items, but there were some jobs like 3M where you get paid per item you produce. So let's say you're getting 24 cents per item produced. Okay, per item. Okay, and so it's something very simple going through the line. You're checking, maybe you're installing a part, or you're putting some packaging on it, putting some labels on it, but you're getting paid 24 cents per item. So in that day, you produced 728 items. That was just what you worked that day. You weren't going at a fast pace. You were just kind of working, installing whatever you needed to. So to figure out what you're getting paid that day, you just multiply these numbers together. If you're getting paid per item, you just multiply by how many items you multiply by. And that should tell you your final answer. Do we have a number?
174.72.
Say again?
174.72.
Okay, boom. You're getting paid about 174 bucks. Maybe that's your job. You can make some money. Maybe it's just a simple item. You're just doing some simple packaging. Or you're just doing quality control, make sure there was no cracks and faults in the item.
And it doesn't matter how many hours you work?
No, that's the beauty of it. It just depends on how many you want to produce. So maybe you're just going for a certain number that day. Sometimes the job will say, hey, once you reach, like 600 items, that's your day. You just check out, they just have it at max that you do. So it's kind of nice. You can kind of work at whatever pace you want to work at. So, but yeah, it just depends on the type of job. Sometimes like in the factories like Winnebago, they have a set time, like 8 hours. Like that's what you have to work, but in that 8 hours you could produce any number of items. So yeah, so you could go crazy and produce money, make a ton of money.
What license do that 3MC hats, makes sure medical supplies and underlying boxes?
Yeah, I know at Larson Manufacturing, I wasn't in this, I was in the storm assembly. There's a couple positions there. You just had to put all the paperwork and all the tools and all the parts in the bag that they would need to assemble it. And they just made sure everything was nicely tucked and zip-locked, and then those items were delivered to the lines, and then we had to put those in the boxes themselves. But the people that were installing those items, making sure all those bags and all the items that you needed, like for like IKEA furniture and stuff, all those things were in the bag. That might be a piece item part where that's the type of job you have. I know it can be tedious and boring, but maybe in that job they let you listen to music. So I mean, it could be just one of those nonchalant jobs. But you can make some serious money if that's all you're doing. It's kind of cool. But some people don't know about that. Like that's just something that sometimes you gotta ask that when you're in the job interview. Like, what type of job is this? Is this by hourly rate? Is it by items, like piecewise, piecework functions? And that type of thing. Kind of cool stuff. Okay, but we're done for the day. That's all I want to talk about.
I know they can get everything.
2 weeks, yeah. And that's another thing you have to ask. Yes. I gotta give you a pass. Thank you. Okay. Thanks. Currently, let me give you a pass here. Yeah, no, those have down there. Just sit.
Oh,
I don't know how.
I might.
Apparently I forgot to turn something in, now I have to work this time.
Just for, no.
Oh, anyway. Or do I?
Matt, can you do I almost hit on it.